Hi everybody, welcome back to Watch Time. Today I'm going to show you what's changed in the collection and discuss another piece in particular to get everybody's thoughts. So I'm going to start with the watch I've been wearing the most recently. This here, as you can see, is a little Heuer Polar Star 100. Now, you can see by the second hand that it's a little quartz piece. It is stainless steel. Quite a nice design bracelet, obviously very basic, but nicely done. It has a fixed bezel and it has a date, a nice blue dial. As you can see there, sort of looks like a vinyl. And no Arabics, but it has these little stick indexes and a triangular index at the top. It's rated to 100 meters, which is pretty good. It has a screw down crown, which is very useful. I do like that. It has a screw down case back, a little diving clasp there. And I would say, I'll put it on the wrist, but it's about I would say it's a 34mm. It's quite a small piece. And as you may remember from my other videos, I prefer the smaller pieces. I don't like huge watches. So it wears really nice. It's extremely comfortable. Nice and light. And I paid about £30 for this. I wouldn't say it's worth anything more than that, but for £30, it's a perfectly adequate watch. Very reliable. Well made. Quite vintage. I would say from my sort of personal estimation, I would say it's a late 90s or 2000s watch. Probably the 2000s. I don't think it's particularly old. But as you can see, it works perfectly. I had it pressure tested as well, and it's still holding its pressure. So I can wear this to swim or to go to bathe or anything like that, which I do. I would always recommend getting them tested if they're vintage, because often they are starting to lose their ability to keep water out. So this is the most commonly worn watch at the moment. I don't think this would have been on my last video, because I picked this up recently. So that shows you there what you can get for £30 if you look around. It's a nice little... I'm reluctant to call it a diver, because to me a diving watch should always have a movable bezel so you can time how much you've been underwater, so to speak. That's what my belief is anyway. So there's that one. I do like that one. Now the next one is this little square piece here. You might remember from my other videos that I really do like square and rectangular watches, especially the Cartier Tank, and I do love the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso as well, but they are extremely expensive, especially the Reverso. And for me, I don't want to fall into the trap of buying a really, really expensive watch again. So as much as it's a bit of a cop-out to get the feel, I often now buy a cheaper piece that has a sort of similar feeling or design. This clearly doesn't look anything like a Cartier Tank or a Reverso, but it is square, and I wanted a square piece for the collection. This was very inexpensive, this one. It was about £12. And I'm sure those who browse Amazon regularly will recognise that this is a make of watch you can find on Amazon. Various designs. Personally, I didn't actually get this from Amazon. I got it from a shop. Over in England, we have shops that cut keys, have watches in, stuff like that. So I got that in there. So it's a very, very basic quartz piece. It has a synthetic leather strap, I think. Yeah, it is. Just a simple buckle as well, and it's quite a small piece, again in keeping with my desire for smaller watches. I don't like huge watches, so I'll show you what it looks like on. like that there. So again, the camera makes it appear bigger than it actually is, but it's quite a nice little watch. Very basic, and it's one of the watches I get compliments on. And throughout my whole history of watch collecting, I've had watches from every possible angle. It's always the cheap ones that get the compliments, and this is one of them. People who aren't into watches often like the most basic designs. So that's that one. This one does have a little bit of wrist time. Not as much as this one at the moment, though. So, what else do I have? Well, some of these are definitely not going to keep a lot of you happy, but I have this one here. This one is obviously what I would call a bling watch. It never gets worn because it doesn't have a strap, and I haven't added a strap to it yet. A little quartz piece again. I'm afraid to admit that I'm one of those people who likes Frank Muller. I like Richard Mille. I like those ostentatious diamondy watches. And I think more watch collectors like them than are willing to admit. So, again, very, very cheap. This one is quite a big piece, as you can see on the wrist there. But the watches of this style often are. They don't, not typically small pieces. But that one really, although I'm putting it in the collection, never gets worn. It might as well be a pocket watch at this rate. So there's that one there. Here's one you've seen before. This is my Bucherer fob watch. My favourite watch in the collection. Little manual wind Bucherer movement there. Swiss. It's only 17 jewel. It's not a complicated movement, but I like, as discussed before, I like things which are a little bit different, and this is a little bit different, obviously. It's not something everybody has. Not particularly valuable either. These aren't real diamonds, but I do like something unusual. Now, what else do we have here? Speaking of unusual, this one here. Now, I'm going to try and demonstrate this, but as you might be able to tell, trying to get it to do it, but that sort of diamondy thing in the middle, as you can see, moves. And that is literally the only thing that got me interested in this watch. I like watches which have an extra layer of something about them, which in this case is this. Now, it would be nice if this was a rotor for an automatic piece, but it isn't. This is a quartz piece as well, and this is also a very cheap watch. This was a less than £20 watch, this one. At the moment, I have it on a NATO strap, and typically you would never see a sort of daft watch like this on a NATO strap, but again, I personally like to do stuff differently, and I like the way that things look atypical like this. A lot of people would be absolutely disgusted at this, and it sort of always goes back to wear the watch that you want, even if everyone else thinks it's a piece of rubbish. You sort of have to do that if you're being true to yourself. And I'm the first to admit this is a piece of rubbish, but it's a piece of rubbish that I like, I'm afraid. So this one does get wrist time as well. I wear this quite a lot. So if you go back to my other videos from years ago when I used to have Omega, Rolex, Cartier, Tudor, anything like that, things have changed a lot. And ironically, my financial position has gotten way, way better. So you would think that I would start to buy more expensive pieces now, but actually I've just found that it's harder to part with the money, so I tend to wear these sort of cheap pieces which a lot of people would consider to be rubbish, and I wouldn't necessarily argue with that, but that's where I'm at with it, really. So these are mostly what I wear, and I have to say, as a viewer of YouTube watch videos, I actually find it more interesting when people do videos like this of watches which are a little bit sort of unusual-ish, not the typical, here's my Rolex Submariner, Cartier Santos, the Omega Speedmaster, the, you know, all of the typical sort of pieces you see all the time. I like to watch videos where there's something a bit different, even if it's not about value or prestige. Just something different is interesting. So hopefully that comes across in this. Now, as the title mentions, I'm going to talk about somewhat of a, well, I don't really know how to describe it, somewhat of a unusual aspect of watch collecting and watchmaking, and that is the fakes or the replicas. It's something which I've mentioned before, and the most viewed videos on this channel are always about the replica watches. Due to the extremely high cost of these watches, there is a massive market for replicas, because simply put, most people don't have the money to pay for the authentic version of these watches. Now, as you'll all know, in the past I've had many authentic pieces, which you can see on other parts of the channel, and I don't wear replica or fake watches, so this watch isn't mine. This is a watch which a friend has loaned to me to make this video. So, as you can see, this is a Tag Heuer fake. It has on the back you can see it's got a embossed rotor, because the Carrera, which is the model it's replicating, is an automatic watch, whereas this is a quartz piece, so inside of it is a quartz movement rather than a automatic movement as it should be. So let's talk about what is good about this as a watch. Well, first of all, and what is now quite commonly sort of agreed, is that the quality of replicas and fakes is actually getting really high and frightening, to the point where some experts, in quotes, experts, have been fooled before by fake watches. This one would never fool anybody because it's meant to be an automatic piece and it has a fake automatic case back. But at first glance, it could be done, because all of the design aspects are there. So this is copied off a watch that actually exists, rather than one of those sort of random Frankenstein designs where it's taken from several models of that maker and turned into something that looks a bit like something they would make. This is actually a direct copy of all of the design aspects of that watch. So at first glance, it looks the part. It has the same ratio, it has the same sized parts, even down to stuff like the rubberized crown here, the position of the pushes, everything like that, the colour of the bezel, the markings on the bezel, the accents at the top here, the colour of the hands, the size of the hands, almost everything is right. It has the 60-second sort of minute counter here is all correct, other than the fact it ticks because it's quartz. The other thing that they've done right is the chronograph works. It's a real working chronograph. It's not just fake buttons as you would get in the old days of these cheap, terrible watches. It also stops, and it also corrects perfectly to 0. So the frank reality that not many people would like to admit is, although this is a replica watch, it's a watch that works, it's functional, and it's good quality. All of the parts are good quality. And it's a shame, really, that it's faking itself to be a Tag Heuer, because if it had no badge at all, then it was not an illegal, morally bankrupt watch. It would actually be well made and well functioning. It's hard to tell what the crystal is, but again, the crystal feels really good quality. It's thick, it's bright, it doesn't have any damage on it, which leads me to question whether it could be sapphire, because you can see on the camera there, it's really actually good quality. The maker of this fake watch has gone as far as to put pretend serial numbers on, which is quite common now as well, even on the back of the watch, which is something that you would typically never look at. And as you can see, it's believable from a distance. The next thing is the strap, which is here, and it's quite a similar story there. As you can see here, they've included the Tag Heuer branding, which is the same as on the real watch. It has this logo. You can see here it has on the inside. I mean, looking at that, you could see it's not correct. The Tag Heuer is written or embossed very badly. This side, again, the font is well off, not correct at all, but from first glance, they have taken some attention to get it right. Here you can see a fairly good quality clasp, which is screwed in, as the real one is. So it's all actually all right. The bits which aren't correct, obviously, as I discussed, are the font here, and this is where you do start to be able to tell the difference massively with a replica or a fake, is that it's just not quite high quality enough. It works well, it's got a nice snapshot sound, but all the parts are just a little bit sharp, they're not very refined. And that's how you can tell, even if you're not very experienced with watches, that it's just not correct, because it just feels a bit sharp and a bit brittle and not quite smooth and refined. So the only other part is the end links here. Again, solid pieces of steel, which is shocking when you think some watches which are genuine are not solid end. By the way, all of these links are solid as well. So you can see here that what you have is that you do have unfortunately a fake watch that is frighteningly acceptable quality. And that's what the worry is going forward, is that as the price of genuine watches gets higher and higher and higher and puts them out of the acquirability category, will more people turn towards these high or even mediocre level fakes and replicas? Will it mean that the replica and fake market increase and the desirability of the real thing decrease? Personally, I could never wear a fake watch. It just feels wrong. It makes you feel like a fraud. It's just not for me. I couldn't do that. It's just, I know that the level of criminality and corruption that's involved in this business, and it's not worth being involved in. But for people who aren't so concerned with that, I could see why they would buy this for, you know, a maximum of, like, you're talking 120 to 150 pounds, rather than spending thousands on the real thing, when it is remarkably a good quality watch. And I think there's a difference between a fake watch and a bad quality watch. Unfortunately, at the point we're at now, you can have a good quality watch that's fake. So that's the danger zone that we're in at the moment. And I feel as if that side of things is, especially over the past, say, 10 years, that's become more and more obvious, that especially the Asian market is really good at making fake things. And I know obviously that's naive to say. It's been that way for a long time, but I think as the desirability of these expensive watches has increased, I think the fakers have become better. And I know they have in many areas of clothing, fashion, all that sort of stuff. So it may be time for watch companies to reflect upon the pricing, because they price a lot of people out of the game completely, which is obviously done on purpose. But some of the mainstream luxury brands have the amount of price increase that they've had is just insane. And it's not surprising that people are turning to fake pieces to get even the slightest taste of what it would be like to have the real thing. So that's just my views on it there. And I know I have mentioned fake pieces before, and I think it's interesting to discuss them when I come across them, because it unfortunately is an aspect of the watch market which does exist and showing no signs of going away. So let me know your thoughts. Obviously, I would never condone the purchase of fake watches, and this is something I'm going to give back to the person who gave it to me to talk about. But I'd like to know what you think, what your thoughts are, or any of your opinions or questions. But hopefully this has been somewhat of an interesting video. As I always say, I apologise, these videos are off the cuff, so they're a stream of consciousness rather than an edited sort of professional documentary. So hopefully you've taken some enjoyment in it, and I will see you next time.